Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. I'm Nikki from Genic Fashions, and today we'll be working on an upcycle. I was able to find $3 t-shirts from a store called Hobby Lobby. I was super excited for this find, and from this t-shirt I made this dress. It was totally more than I was expecting to do. I was actually only trying to try two new skills. I wanted to learn how to make a sweetheart neck with just an elastic, and I also wanted to try to make ruffles. So I'm super excited with how it came out, and I am ready to walk you through these steps. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to press like, don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Enjoy the tutorial. In order to create or upcycle, I'll be using an extra large t-shirt from a craft store, and I have some scraps left over from other projects. If I need more fabric, I'm going to try to use this scrap. It is not exactly the same shade of green, but that actually might be to our benefit when I'm using it. In addition to that, I need two items that I can use as a pattern. So I'm going to use this top that I recently made in order to get the shape of the top of the dress, and I'm going to be using this skirt that I made previously in order to get the shape of the bottom. Here's what our two pieces look like when they're laid out on top of the t-shirt. Notice that the skirt goes way beyond the length of the t-shirt, so I will be adding something at the bottom to give this piece more length. My shirt is folded in half, and that is the fold line here. I'm going to take my shirt that I already have made, and I'm going to fold that in half as well, and put it as far up, as high up as I can, so that I can get the most length out of my t-shirt. And I'm going to do the same for the skirt and place the skirt right below. I have pins outlining the shape going around the pattern that we're using, and I will be cutting outside of these pins. I'm going to give a little bit more space just in case the t-shirt does not stretch as much as these items that I have here. But I do want to reserve some of this fabric for something else I'll be adding on to this dress, so I am not going to cut too far out. So right now my fabric is in 4 layers, and I want to separate them out so I can open up my shirt or dress as it will be. So in order to do that, I'm going to unpin one pin, repin just 2 layers of our fabric at the top, and pin the bottom 2 layers together as well. And I will do that 1 pin at a time for the entire length of the fabric. Now I have my side seams all pinned on both sides, and my shirt is opened up, and I'm ready to go ahead, take this to the machine and sew it up. Before you do that, if you're making this, definitely between these 2 steps, make sure to try it on before you sew this up. Next, I'll be hemming the top of the dress. Because I don't want to lose any length here, I am going to do a rolled hem. So I'm just going to barely fold this over and then fold it over again. It's not really 2 distinct folds. I'm just kind of rolling it, and I'm going to pin it going all the way around. And now that I've finished pinning my rolled hem, I'm just going to take this to the machine and sew it with a zigzag stitch. I'm going to use elastic to give the top of my dress a sweetheart shape. And in order to do that, I've marked out 6.5 inches going from the top of the dress to the bottom of where I want to gather the fabric. And I've cut an elastic about 2/3 of that length. So this is 6.5 inches, and this is approximately 4.5 inches. And I'm going to pin the elastic to the top of the dress, the top of the hem. And I'm also going to pin the elastic to the bottom, and I'm working on the inside, of course. I'm going to pin the elastic to where I want it to go to. So it's not going to lay flat, and that's intentional. So it's gathering a little bit. When I sew it, I'm going to sew it straight with a zigzag stitch, and then it's going to form again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just make sure to anchor the elastic at the hem of this dress, at the top hem. So, and make sure that you are on a zigzag stitch. Once you have your elastic anchored on the fabric, you want to stretch it out until it's flush flat on the fabric. And then we can go ahead and with our zigzag stitch, we can sew it to the fabric. I'll be making straps for my dress. So in order to get the fabric for the straps, I'm actually going to take it off of the sleeve. So I'm just going to take that widest area of the sleeve and cut about 2.5 inches width and get my fabric there in order to attach straps. Alright, so I folded the strips that I just cut from the sleeve in half, long ways, and I pinned it up. Right side is on the inside, so inside out, and I'll be sewing along where I have the pins using a zigzag stitch so that it can maintain some stretch. So I turned my first strap right side out, and I used a safety pin in order to accomplish that. So I have a pretty big one right here because I have a pretty wide strap and it can fit easily. And the bigger the pin, the easier this process is. So I'm going to go ahead and put the pin through one side of the fabric, close the safety pin, and then I'm going to feed that pin into the fabric and pull it through the other side. So I tried on the dress and positioned the straps where I wanted them, pinned them and sewed them onto the inside of the dress. So there you go. Doesn't look that great from the inside because I don't have a serger, but from the outside, looks good. All right, so now the last step is to get my ruffles on so that I can add some length to this dress. I have 2 strips of fabric that came from the sides of the t-shirt, but that is not enough to get ruffles all the way around the dress. So I've also used some scrap fabric, which is a different shade of green, and I'll be alternating one light green, one dark green, one light green, one dark green. So I'm going to sew these strips together, right side to right side. The alternating strips have been sewn together. In order to create the ruffle at the bottom, we have to hand sew a base stitch into the top of the fabric that we're going to attach. So we just go ahead and go just in and out with the needle. And I have a knot at the end so it doesn't come through when I pull it. And so when you're ready to decide what you want the ruffle to look like, you're going to go ahead and pull on this thread until it has enough gather, the amount of gather that you want. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and keep base stitching and I'll be back. This is just an idea of what the ruffles will look like. I've just placed them at the bottom of the dress. They're not sewn or pinned on. I did want to just make sure that I had enough fabric to go around and create that effect before I closed up my strip, and it is enough. I just have to be very careful as I'm gathering this fabric that I have it as evenly gathered throughout as possible. Alright, so now I'm going to actually, since I know I have enough, I am going to put right side to right side of this fabric and sew it together. That would have been a step before the ruffles. It would have made sense to do before the ruffles, but again, I did want to test to see if this went around the dress enough, and it does. In order to help guide myself and make sure that I have an even distribution of the ruffles, I folded my dress in half and I marked the halfway point with a pin here and in the back as well. And for my ruffles, as you may recall, I have an even split of dark green and light green. So I'm going to make sure as I line this up and as I pin this that the split where the halfway point is going to be the same as the split where the fabric changes. My dress is right side out, and I've turned my ruffles inside out, and I'm going to go ahead and stick my dress into the ruffles. And the goal here is that the right side of the ruffles should be touching the right side of the dress. The ruffles also should be upside down, so the hem of the ruffle is facing that way. And so now I can connect my ruffle and my dress with that in mind. Now, one thing also to keep in mind, I want my ruffle to change color right at the center point of the dress. So I'm using that pin that marked the center of the dress, and I'm going to make sure that I'm pinning the ruffle at that point where it changes color. And I'm going to do the same where it changes color for the side seams and the midpoint of the back as well. I worked on 1/4 of the hem at a time to try to really evenly distribute that ruffle. And now I have everything pinned, and I'm going to go ahead and take this to the sewing machine, and we are going to stitch that on. Alright, so I finished sewing the ruffles on. I spread them out as evenly as I could. It's definitely not perfect, but I think it actually doesn't matter as far as ruffles are concerned. Well, as long as it's not extremely gathered in one place and not gathered at all in another. Alright, so if you take a look here, the base stitches are still here, and so I'm going to remove those. These are the stitches from the t-shirt at the hem. I actually left those intentionally because I do like that line that creates in our dress. So I'm going to go ahead, remove the base stitches, and clean up the rest of this dress, and it's done.